Hey friends! Welcome back to English Podcast Flow. Oh my gosh, Frank, I am so excited about today's topic. Can you tell I love weddings?
Hey guys, Alice has been talking about this episode all week. Today we're diving into weddings and how to talk about them in English. And this is such a fun topic, because weddings are these incredible celebrations that happen in every culture, but they're all so different. And whether you're attending a wedding, planning one, or just talking about someone else's wedding, there's so much specific vocabulary you need to know. Plus, weddings are one of those topics that come up constantly in social conversations. So, being comfortable with this language is really useful.
Exactly! And Frank, I have to tell you, I recently went to my first Indian wedding, and it was completely different from any Western wedding I'd ever been to. It was 3 days long. There were so many colors and traditions, and I realized I didn't even know how to talk about what I was experiencing because I didn't have the vocabulary for Indian wedding customs. So today we're going to cover not just traditional Western weddings, but also other cultural traditions like Indian weddings. Because in English-speaking countries, especially in diverse cities, you're going to encounter all kinds of wedding styles.
That's perfect because my coworker is getting married next month, and it's going to be a fusion wedding, which means they're combining elements from two different cultural traditions. So I'm learning right alongside everyone else.
Let's talk about it. Quick thing before we start. Thank you so much for being part of this community. We're so grateful you're here.
If you're loving these conversations, would you hit subscribe and turn on notifications? It means the world to us. And leave a like. Every single one helps other English learners find this channel and join our community. Thank you. Now let's talk about weddings. Alice, tell me about this Indian wedding you went to because I'm so curious. How did you even get invited?
So my friend Priya, who I've known since college, got married last summer, and she invited me to her wedding in New Jersey, where her family lives. And Frank, when she first invited me, I said yes immediately because I was so honored. But then I started panicking because I had no idea what to expect or what to wear or what any of the customs meant. So I called Priya and I was like, I'm so excited, but I'm completely clueless. Please tell me everything I need to know. And she was so sweet about it. She explained that Indian weddings, especially traditional Hindu weddings, are not just one event. They're multiple events over several days. And each event has its own significance and its own dress code and customs.
Wait, multiple days? How many events are we talking about?
So, Priya's wedding had 3 main events. The first was the Mehndi ceremony, which is when the bride and her female friends and family members get henna designs applied to their hands and feet. It's this beautiful, intricate archy, and the patterns are supposed to bring good luck and joy. And Frank, these designs were incredible. Like the artists were painting these elaborate patterns that went all the way up the bride's arms, and it took hours. And while the henna was being applied, there was music and dancing and food, and all the women were in these gorgeous, colorful outfits. I wore a salwar kameez, which is a traditional Indian outfit with a long tunic and pants that Priya helped me pick out. And everyone kept complimenting me, which made me feel so welcomed, even though I was clearly not Indian and didn't know what I was doing half the time.
That sounds amazing. What was the second event?
The second day was the Sangeet, which is basically a big party with music and dancing. And different family members and friends performed dances they've choreographed, usually to Bollywood songs. And Frank, this was so fun! Priya's cousins did this elaborate dance number that they'd been practicing for weeks. And Priya's friends, including me, did a dance that we learned just a couple days before. And even though we were not great at it, everyone cheered and clapped like we were professional dancers. And the energy in that room was just electric. Everyone was so happy and joyful, and there was so much laughter and celebration. And the food, oh my goodness, the food was incredible. There were like 20 different dishes, all these curries and breads and rice dishes and sweets, and I tried everything, even though I didn't know the names of half the things I was eating.
And then the actual wedding ceremony was on the third day.
Yes, the wedding ceremony itself was in the morning, and it was this beautiful, sacred event. The ceremony took place under a mandap, which is a decorated canopy structure, and there was a priest who was chanting prayers in Sanskrit and performing different rituals. The bride and groom exchanged garlands, which is called Jamala, where they put flower garlands around each other's necks, and they walked around a sacred fire 7 times, which is called Saat Phere, and each circle represents a vow they're making to each other. And Frank, I have to be honest, I didn't understand a lot of what was being said because it was in Sanskrit and Hindi, but I could feel the significance of it all. Everyone was crying, including me, because you could just feel the love and the importance of these promises they were making.
That sounds so beautiful and meaningful. Was there a reception after?
Yes. The reception was that evening, and it was this massive party with probably 400 people. In Indian culture, weddings are huge community events, and it's common to invite extended family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, everyone. And there was a DJ, and more dancing, and Mari food. And the bride changed outfits like 3 times throughout the night, each outfit more stunning than the last.
What an incredible experience. And I bet you learned so much vocabulary just from being there.
I did. And honestly, the best part was that everyone was so patient with me and explained things when I asked questions. Like, I didn't know that guests usually give money as a gift, and there's a specific way to present it in an envelope, and people told me about that. Or that you're supposed to take your shoes off before entering the mandap area. Little things like that. And now when I hear people talking about Indian weddings, I can actually participate in the conversation instead of just nodding along, pretending I understand.
Okay, Alice. Now let me tell you about traditional Western weddings because my sister got married 2 years ago. And it was a very classic American wedding, and I was actually in the wedding party, which means I was one of the groomsmen. You know what that is?
Yes. The groomsmen are the groom's close friends or family members who stand with him during the ceremony, and the bridesmaids do the same for the bride?
Exactly. So my sister had 5 bridesmaids, and my brother-in-law, the groom, had 5 groomsmen including me. And in traditional Western weddings, the wedding party, which is the collective term for bridesmaids and groomsmen, has specific roles and responsibilities. As a groomsman, I had to rent a tuxedo, which is a formal suit that men wear to very fancy events, and all the groomsmen wore matching tuxes so we looked coordinated. We also had to help with the bachelor party, which is a party for the groom that happens before the wedding, usually organized by the best man, who is the groom's closest friend or brother, and basically his right-hand person throughout the wedding process.
And the bride has a maid of honor, right? That's the equivalent for the bride.
Exactly. The maid of honor is the bride's closest friend or sister, and she helps plan the bridal shower, which is a party where female friends and family give the bride gifts for her new home, and the bachelorette party, which is like the bachelor party, but for the bride. And let me tell you, Alice, being in a wedding is expensive and time-consuming. Between the tuxedo rental, the bachelor party weekend trip we took, the wedding gift, and the hotel for the wedding weekend, I probably spent over $1,000. And that's pretty normal for wedding party members.
Wow, that's a lot. Well, so walk me through what a traditional Western wedding ceremony looks like, because I know there's a specific order of events.
Right, so typically the ceremony starts with the processional, which is when the wedding party walks down the aisle to their positions at the front. The aisle is the pathway between the rows of seats that leads to where the ceremony will happen, usually at the front of a church or ceremony venue. The groomsmen and bridesmaids walk down in pairs, then the maid of honor, then the best man, And then finally the bride walks down the aisle, usually with her father or another important person in her life. And this is the moment everyone stands up and the music changes to something really dramatic and emotional. And I'm not going to lie, Alice, when I saw my sister walking down that aisle in her wedding dress, I completely teared up. It was such a powerful moment.
I would have cried too. So then what happens?
Then the officiant, which is the person performing the ceremony, usually a priest, minister, rabbi, or a judge, begins the ceremony. They might talk about the meaning of marriage, share a reading or prayer, and then they get to the vows, which are the promises the bride and groom make to each other. Some couples write their own personal vows, which can be really emotional and meaningful. Or they use traditional vows like for better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Then they exchange rings, which symbolize their eternal commitment to each other because a ring is a circle with no beginning and no end. And then the officiant says, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," or "I now pronounce you married." And the couple kisses, and everyone cheers and claps.
And then there's the recessional, right? That's when they walk back down the aisle as a married couple.
Exactly. And the music is usually really upbeat and joyful at this point. And then everyone goes to the reception, which is the party after the ceremony. The reception usually includes a cocktail hour, which is when guests have drinks and appetizers while the bride and groom take photos, then dinner, which can be a sit-down meal or a buffet, and then dancing and celebrating. There are usually special moments like the first dance, which is when the newlyweds, which is what you call a couple who just got married, have their first dance together as a married couple, and the father-daughter dance, where the bride dances with her father, and the cake cutting, where the couple cuts the wedding cake together and feeds each other a piece, which is supposed to symbolize taking care of each other.
And don't forget the bouquet toss. That's always so fun to watch.
Oh yes, the bouquet toss is when all the single women gather, and the bride turns around and throws her bouquet behind her, and whoever catches it is supposedly going to be the next one to get married. And there's also the garter toss, which is similar, but for single men, where the groom removes a garter, which is this little elastic band the bride wears on her leg, and throws it to the single guys. Some people think these traditions are a bit old-fashioned now, but they're still common at many weddings.
Frank, we talked about Indian weddings and Western weddings, but there are so many other beautiful cultural traditions. Have you been to any other types of weddings?
I went to a Chinese wedding a few years ago for a colleague, and it was fascinating because it had elements that were completely new to me. For example, the color red is extremely important in Chinese weddings because it symbolizes luck, prosperity, and happiness. The bride wore a red wedding dress, which was so striking and beautiful, very different from the white wedding dresses you see at Western weddings. And instead of a wedding cake, there was a whole roasted pig, which I learned is a traditional symbol of prosperity and good fortune. And guests gave red envelopes filled with money as gifts, which is called hongbao. And there's actually etiquette about how much money you should give based on your relationship to the couple.
That's so interesting. I've heard about Jewish weddings having some unique traditions too. Have you been to one?
I haven't personally, but my friend told me about hers. At Jewish weddings, one of the most famous traditions is the breaking of the glass. At the end of the ceremony, the groom steps on a glass wrapped in cloth and breaks it, and everyone yells Mazel Tov, which means congratulations or good luck in Hebrew. There are different interpretations of what this symbolizes, but one common meaning is that it represents the fragility of relationships and the need to always protect and cherish your marriage. And at the reception, there's something called the hora, which is a traditional Jewish folk dance where guests form a circle and dance together, and the bride and groom are lifted up on chairs while everyone dances around them. It looks like so much fun.
I love that. And what about Muslim weddings? I know there's a lot of variety depending on the country and culture, but Are there common elements?
From what I understand, Muslim weddings, which are often called nikah ceremonies, can vary quite a bit depending on whether it's Arab, Pakistani, Turkish, Indonesian, or another cultural tradition. But some common elements include the signing of the marriage contract, which is a legal and religious agreement between the bride and groom. And often the bride receives a mahr, which is a mandatory gift, from the groom, usually money or jewelry, that becomes her property. And in many Muslim cultures, men and women celebrate separately. So there might be separate events or separate sections of the venue for men and women. I went to a Pakistani wedding once where the women's side was absolutely gorgeous, with all this elaborate decoration, and the women were in these stunning outfits, with so much embroidery and jewelry, and the men's side was much simpler. It was really interesting to see how the celebration was structured differently.
And I've heard about Nigerian weddings being incredibly elaborate and colorful. A friend of mine from Nigeria showed me pictures from her sister's wedding. And Frank, there were so many outfit changes and different ceremonies. She said traditional Nigerian weddings can have multiple days too, with the traditional ceremony where both families are involved and there are specific customs like the bride and groom kneeling before their elders to receive blessings. And then there's usually a white wedding, which is a Western-style ceremony. And then there's the reception with dancing and music. And the outfits, oh my goodness, the fabrics and colors and head wraps were just stunning.
It's so beautiful how every culture has its own way of celebrating marriage, but the core element is always the same, which is bringing people together and celebrating their love and commitment with their community. And in English-speaking countries, especially in diverse cities, you're going to encounter all of these different types of weddings. So having the vocabulary to understand and talk about different traditions is really valuable.
Frank, let's talk about the practical side of weddings, like planning and all the conversations that happen around that. Because wedding planning is this huge topic that people spend months or even years talking about.
Oh, absolutely. When someone gets engaged, which means they've decided to get married, and usually the person proposing gives an engagement ring, that's when all the wedding planning talk starts. And the first question everyone asks is, have you set a date? Or when's the wedding? And couples have to decide on a date, which can be tricky because you have to consider the season, the availability of venues, and whether it works for important family members. Some people want a summer wedding because of the nice weather. Others prefer fall for the beautiful colors. Some want winter for a cozy feel, and spring for flowers and renewal symbolism.
And then there's the venue, right? That's a huge decision. What are the different types of venues people choose?
So many options. Some people get married in a church, synagogue, mosque, or temple if they want a religious ceremony. Others choose a wedding venue that's specifically designed for events, like a banquet hall or a country club. Some people have outdoor weddings in gardens, beaches, vineyards, or even their own backyard if it's big enough. And then there are destination weddings, where the couple and their guests travel to another city or country to get married, somewhere tropical or scenic or meaningful to the couple. Destination weddings can be controversial though, because they're expensive for guests and not everyone can afford to travel.
Right, and that brings up the whole issue of the guest list, which is apparently one of the most stressful parts of wedding planning. I've heard so many stories about couples fighting with their families about who should be invited.
The guest list is brutal, Alice, because weddings are expensive and venues have capacity limits, so couples have to make tough decisions about who makes the cut. And then there's pressure from parents who want to invite their friends and extended family. And you end up with conflicts about whether to invite distant relatives or your parents' coworkers or people you haven't seen in 10 years. And then there's the RSVP, which stands for Répondez s'il vous plaît. It's French for please respond. And that's when guests let the couple know whether they can attend or not. And it's so frustrating when people don't RSVP by the deadline because the couple needs to give final numbers to the caterer and venue.
And speaking of caterers, the whole food and beverage situation is another huge decision. What are the typical options?
Usually, couples choose between a sit-down dinner, where guests are served plated meals at their tables, or a buffet, where guests line up and serve themselves from different food stations, or sometimes family style, where large platters are brought to each table and people pass them around. And then there's the question of the bar, whether it's an open bar, meaning drinks are free for guests and the couple pays for everything, or a cash bar, where guests pay for their own drinks. Though cash bars are often considered tacky or cheap by some people, and the menu itself is a big deal, you have to consider dietary restrictions like vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, kosher, halal, and you usually need to indicate on the RSVP card what your meal preference is.
What about all the other vendors? I know there's so much more than just venue and food.
Oh, there's so much. You need a photographer and usually a videographer to capture the memories. You need a DJ or a band for music and entertainment. You might need a florist for the bouquets and centerpieces and ceremony decorations. You need someone to do hair and makeup for the bride and bridesmaids. You might hire a wedding planner to coordinate everything and make sure the day runs smoothly. You need transportation, especially if the ceremony and reception are in different locations. You need invitations designed and printed and mailed. You might need hotel room blocks reserved for out-of-town guests. The list goes on, and each vendor requires research, meetings, contracts, and payment. Alice, let's talk about actually attending weddings and the etiquette around that, because there are a lot of unwritten rules that people are expected to know.
Yes, and these can vary by culture and region, but in general, Western wedding etiquette. What are the main things guests should know?
First, RSVP on time, like we mentioned. Don't wait until the last minute. Second, unless the invitation specifically says in guest or has a +1, which means you can bring a date, you should assume the invitation is only for you. Don't bring someone who wasn't invited. Third, don't wear white to a wedding unless you're the bride. White is reserved for the bride, and wearing white as a guest is seen as trying to upstage her, which is a major faux pas, which means a social mistake.
What about what to wear in general? That's always confusing.
The invitation should indicate the dress code. If it says black tie, that means very formal tuxedos for men and long gowns for women. Cocktail attire means semi-formal, nice dresses and suits. Casual means you can dress down a bit but still look put together, no jeans or sneakers. And beach casual or garden party attire is what it sounds like, lighter fabrics and colors appropriate for outdoor settings. When in doubt, it's better to be slightly overdressed than underdressed.
And gifts. What's the etiquette around wedding gifts?
Most couples create a wedding registry, which is a list of items they want, usually at stores like Target, Amazon, Bed Bath & Beyond, and guests can choose something from the registry to buy for them. This ensures the couple gets things they actually need and want. Or you can give money, which is becoming increasingly common, especially since many couples already live together and don't need household items. The general rule is to give a gift that's roughly equivalent to the cost of your attendance. So if you estimate the couple is spending $100 to $150 per guest on food and drinks, you give a gift in that range. Though honestly, any thoughtful gift is appreciated.
What about during the wedding itself? Are there things guests should or shouldn't do?
Turn off your phone or put it on silent during the ceremony. Don't take photos during the ceremony if the couple has asked for an unplugged wedding, which means they want guests to be present and not distracted by phones. Don't get sloppy drunk at the reception. Don't monopolize the bride and groom's time. They have a lot of people to greet. Don't give a speech unless you're specifically asked to. Usually only the best man and maid of honor give speeches. Don't bring up exes or tell embarrassing stories, basically. Remember, it's the couple's special day, not yours, so be respectful and celebrate them.
Your turn. Go to the comments and tell us. Have you been to a wedding? What type was it? What was the most memorable part? We want to hear all your wedding stories and dreams. Share with the community.
Thank you so much for celebrating with us today. Weddings are such joyful occasions. And now you have all the vocabulary you need to talk about them confidently in English. And remember, weddings are about love and commitment and bringing people together. Every culture does it differently, but the heart of it is always the same. Take care.
Whether you're attending a Western wedding, an Indian wedding, a Chinese wedding, or any other cultural celebration, you can now understand the traditions and participate in conversations about them. Keep learning, keep celebrating, and keep embracing all the beautiful diversity in this world. We'll see you next time. Bye, friends!